episode 65, the start of season 2. Welcome to the Card Diary by Javi S. Thompson. I am your host, Denny Cards, mainly on Instagram. Don't look for me on Threads, okay? Same with TikTok and YouTube. It's hard enough to keep up with one social media platform, plus this podcast, plus trying to sell cards online, plus going to card shows, plus recently I just made a reel about hosting trade nights, and also that's content creation, plus prepping cards for a grading submission, which I recently did, talking to hobby companies and potential sponsors, DMing with all of you, uh, writing articles for Hobby News Daily, which I just did I sent out before pressing record. Um, and that's just the hobby. They're all while trying to strike a better family work-life balance, and hobby adjacent or sports adjacent. I'm coaching both of my kids, their youth basketball teams, and just meeting the needs and wants of my young family. Wait, where was I going with this? Yeah, the end of season 1 and the start of season 2. All these hats I wear, and quite frankly, all the hats you wear, too, in and out of the hobby. I guess that's what this podcast is all about. If you haven't done those things that I just mentioned, my hope is that you either are inspired by what I talk about or what my guests talk about, and you give it a try, or even if you don't, that you maybe gain a better understanding of what it's like to be on that other side. And so I can't remember the last time I talked about this, but for those of you who are newer, this podcast, thank you. I don't know how you found me, but likely through Instagram. This podcast was always meant to be a limited series, and I won't get into it now. But I did shop this podcast idea around, and spoke with two folks within the hobby, and in that pitch or the workshop, it was, my plan was to do 10 to 12 episodes, each one focusing on one aspect of the hobby, which, is now like I consider the chapter episodes. And then it turned into having these, monologue episodes, and then with one or two guests illustrating that particular, I remember, calling it the gerunds of the hobby, a gerund, Gerund, being a verb ending in ing. And those were, I guess, simpler times. At that time I was afraid of striking it on my own and finding guests, and having anyone agree to come on to this podcast, just an unknown, new, starting at zero, all of that stuff. And I was incredibly surprised when anyone would agree to come on. And again, it wasn't me, it was just people being nice and willing to come onto the podcast, which I still really appreciate. So then something funny happened along the way. I started to lose my structure and routine. I Quite frankly, I guess I started having more fun with the podcast, being kind of like, untethered from the structure and routine, calling the more recent episodes the bonus episodes, because there wasn't a chapter, there wasn't guests tethered to a particular chapter or a gerund in the hobby. And I started to talk to who I wanted to and when I wanted to. And that's probably why I enjoyed the bonus episode so much. And I started to, in a way, I think, I don't know if you agree, but started to catch my stride with these podcast episodes. And I think that, you know, um, gosh, I can only imagine how difficult those first few episodes were to listen to. I mean, maybe even this is hard to listen to for you, but I definitely think each and every one of you who started this podcasting journey with me from the beginning which hasn't even been a year yet, but it just seems like forever. Like, it's like a day in the hobby or a week in the hobby feels like a month, and a month in the hobby feels like a year. Things like that. But thank you for listening. Because I'll be quite honest. Unless I have to for editing reasons, which I stopped doing those like promo reels, promoting my podcast and sound bites into Instagram. I could probably get back to that, but I don't even like listening to my own podcast. It's mainly because I don't like the sound of my own voice. But my wife doesn't listen. Close family doesn't listen. There's some people in the hobby who are close who listen, and I appreciate that. There's definitely some small part of me that hopes or thinks that my kids will listen to this uh, eventually. I think that's just wishful thinking. I think that's a pipe dream at this point. But I will continue to, I don't know, in a way, provide. What am I trying to say? Not family friendly, but if you have kids listening in the background, as I have sometimes have done, whether they are uh, kids or pets, you can listen to this podcast without worry of me. I don't know, just cursing. I don't know. I was gonna say something funny, but anyway. Okay, what am I doing here? Okay, so I will admit that this podcast, I just it's kind of strange. You just speak into the microphone and you just monologue when you don't have a guest. Definitely thought about getting a co-host for season two. I love the camaraderie and the back and forth that some podcast hosts have when they're doing a show together. Haven't really found the right person yet. I've definitely had some ideas, but so I am going to start season two without one. I, in a way, do this podcast mainly for myself. It's almost like an audio recorded diary. Of course, that's not the reason I call it the car diary, but it almost is like a way that I'm capturing a moment in time in my hobby journey. But also in doing so, I'm my hope is that the listener, you're given a glimpse into different aspects of the hobby, right? So um probably the most proud I am of the podcast is like the Meet the Creator mini series that I did. Spoke with several creators and employees and owners of grading companies. That was a lot of fun. So in season two, my plan is to continue to have fun and provide some, yeah, I don't know, entertainment and education, infotainment, edutainment. I don't know, but I just hope that provides some sort of value because there's a lot of content out there, and I've kind of recently spoke about it. Really, I'm not going to get into the particular names and all that, but there is a lot of content out there in the hobby, and I don't know. I don't think I'm the best. I also don't think I'm the worst, but yeah, there's a lot of content. That's all I'll say for now. Um, so to start season two, having fun, providing some sort of value is important. I do want to get back to the basics of the transactional side of the hobby because, since last May of 2023, when I first started this podcast, I've learned so much more about it. And there's so many people to talk to on this side of the hobby, just the transactional side, which again, I don't know what percentage of the hobby it is, but it's a huge percentage. So, you have breakers, you have sellers on eBay and other platforms and auction houses, and I'm gonna try not to make it all like oh, this auction house is sponsoring this or that, but I think it'd be really helpful to talk to the people who are sellers, individual sellers and big consigners, things like that, vendors at local shows, LCS owners, like local cart shop owners. There are some people who are really blessed and fortunate to have a local cart shop that is actually local, and some have to drive an hour or two or plus more, and they have to do all their wax buying or singles buying online. um, there are also cart show promoters, and that, well, I think I mentioned vendors at local cart shows. So you have all those folks, and you know um, let me pause here. I almost at the 10-minute mark. Actually, I just want to mute. um, all right, I'll be very upfront. I had to burp. So what I've learned is, and I've already known this for a while, and everyone knows this, right? They say that about the hobby. Reputation means everything. And, I think for me, I very much admit, I'm like the first one to admit it. Okay. The transactional side of the hobby, I'm just not that good at it. At least, I think I'm a better, say, for example, a better content creator or better podcaster than I am like a vendor at a card show, and I'm trying to get better with my selling on eBay. But it's hard when you have like very little sales and reviews and all that and experience. But you know, just because I'm still wet behind the ears in that aspect doesn't mean that I can't get better. But I will say, especially when it comes to the in-person dealing or vending at a card show, I just feel too much like it's like a salesman, and that's just not a strong suit of mine. Like the wheeling and dealing, keeping things, in track. Y- I don't know. I just sometimes just get overwhelmed by it. I'm sure it gets easier and better as you do it more, but I think that it's a skill set that I have to improve on, and talking to these folks might help me out. So, but I think that's why I like online transactions. You just kind of strip away the immediacy of trying to make a deal with someone who's staring at you, trying to figure out, okay, is this person like, is he glitching by not doing anything, or is he actually thinking? So, that's why, I'm not going to get into too much, but the eBay sales right now, usually my Sunday night, I'm recording this on a Sunday evening, February 4th. It's usually my time to list things on eBay and time to get things packed up for Monday shipping, for Monday, going to the post office. Um, and I didn't do it because last Sunday was the conference championship games, where I enjoyed those, and then next Sunday is the Super Bowl. So I figured I would just give myself a little bit of a break, and so I am recording this, instead of what I used to call like my time buying on, like like PWCC or on eBay. So neither of them being sponsors, of course. So, but it's interesting. Like I do want to delve more into kind of like the psychology of an auction, because with a buy it now, um, it could be priced so reasonably, and yet there's something about seeing a dollar value on like an auction listing and thinking you can get it for less. Because as you watch it and bid on it, I don't know about you, but I start to get emotionally attached to winning the item. And then there's that whole competitive aspect of an auction, wanting to win it, feeling like, I don't know, somehow it validates you, or, you're a winner. I don't know. But, some of us in the hobby, I mean, not me, but others, you've played competitively in sports. And so you have that killer instinct gene, or, whatever, the Michael Jordan gene. You don't ever want to lose. You always want to win. So any auction you enter, you want to win it. Right. So, I will admit, eBay is not the only auction place, right? You have Whatnot. I will very much admit, last year this time, like I was still really sucked into Whatnot. I just spent not way too much. I spent too much. Not in like I got my head over my skis, but more than what I should have, or more than what I wanted to. And so if I ever do go back to Whatnot or another streaming platform as a buyer, I think I would want to do so in a more fiscally responsible manner, with, setting a budget, or again, it's not just the money, it's the time. It's the time limit or the time budget. So, uh on that note, I mean, I also signed up recently for the PSA Collectors Club with the Card Ladder membership, and, $120 in loot credit. So I have that coming my way. A loop being an alternative to Whatnot, $20 a month for 6 months. So I don't have the full 120 yet, but once I do, I don't know, get into a break, buy some singles, do something, because that money is just going to be sitting there. So when it comes to season two, oh my goodness, I meant to do this on StreamYard so I could make more visual. No, podcast. Just keep it about the podcast. Okay. So I eventually do want to cover custom card art, even share my own, crude attempts at this very, in my opinion, very difficult form of art, just confined to the 2.5 by 3.5 inch medium. But I think it's just some of the card art that I've seen out there is just absolutely beautiful and amazing. And I've supported card artists and I will continue to do so. And there is mail that I have sitting from card artists who have mailed things to me that I haven't opened up yet because I just want to, I don't know, find the right time and time it with content because I don't want to just, open up everything and just, flood my feed with content all in one day. But, I also want to cover grading again. Maybe, maybe even doing like a Meet the Grader series too. Still didn't get someone from PSA or Beckett or SGC. So, I would love to have also the owner of, you know, like Mike Hardpost, someone who was a previous sponsor, talk about being a content creator who has recently taken on sponsorships. And, that's something that I meant to do for months. And I had a draft, I had some talking points, and I just never got around to it. And I feel like at this point, my relationship with um, like the sponsorship or the financial, again, not the transactional side, but the financial side of the hobby is changing, and it's evolving, or I don't know, evolving, devolving. But there's that aspect that I would love to talk about. Have content creators who have been sponsored or not been sponsored, talk to them. I would love to have more collectors on. I feel like set collecting is a dying form, or a dying breed. The set collector. There's also, I guess, the modern evolution, which is the rainbow set collector, right? The rainbow collector who wants every variation of one particular card. Then you also have the pack collectors, people who, whether they grade the packs or not, they have sealed wax packs, sealed wax boxes, cases. Then you have the oddball card collectors and the non-sports card. Not even talking about Pokemon and TCG. So I don't know. You have all these people, and then there's also, what do my notes say here? Like having a chapter on hobby writing. Like, just like I said, just before pressing record, I submitted my draft to Hobby News Daily, and having maybe some of the writers on that, in that stable of great writers on, and also having people I've alluded to in the past. If you've listened to this podcast enough, Cage Lawyer and Mike Geo keep saying he ducks the podcast. I just know they're busy and all that. Too busy for me. Too busy for little old me. But would love to have them talk about the actual medium of podcasts. Imagine that, a hobby podcast talking about making hobby podcasts, right? It would just be so meta, so Inception. What's the behind the scenes, like? What's the what platforms, what help do they get, either technical or otherwise. So I don't know. Honestly, talking about that entire, all the people I want to have on, I have no clue how to fit all of this in. I don't know how long it's going to take me. I have a lot of ideas. It can seem daunting for sure. It is, it's not writer's block. It actually is the opposite. It's quite the opposite. It's too much. But and it really can be nerve-wracking, but I also know that in order to do it, I have to start season 2, and that's what this is. I think there is, again, I don't know, he's so controversial or problematic nowadays, but Kevin Spacey, in season 1 of House of Cards, there was that scene. I don't know what episode, what scene, but it was the, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? So when I started this podcast, I had not even a baby elephant. I mean, it was a baby of a podcast idea, but it grew and grew. And now I just feel like I have so many ideas, so many people I want to talk to, so many good folks that I would love to shine a spotlight on and just give them the opportunity to kind of speak. I can learn from them. Hopefully, you can learn something from them. And just, we can all continue to learn and grow. I mean, that's the whole point of this podcast, is to learn and understand each other better, and to just have, I don't know, just some laughs or fun along the way. So I have to eat this elephant one bite at a time. Good thing I am. I recently made a reel that I'm the hungriest man in the hobby. I don't know. I feel like there are these people, right? Like Dan, the great curator, who I've had on twice. He's like, I'm the hardest working man in the hobby. And it's okay. I don't. He doesn't listen to this. But I love the idea. I mean, it's such a joke and, tongue in cheek, and yet some people take it way too seriously. And so, even when I did the whole hobby uncle, hobby funkle, people just lost their mind and got too serious about that too. Please don't take me too seriously. I guess that's a good way to putting it. But yeah, the hungriest man in the hobby. I'll have to eat that elephant one bite at a time. Um, Season 2, I'm really excited. I really am, and that's why I wish that I had recorded this on StreamYard to have a video component. Because if you could see me right now, I hope you can hear it in my voice, like, I'm, like, really excited. Yes, it's nerve-wracking, but I'm excited, I'm smiling, I'm, like, ready to get this going. It's a Sunday evening, the first Sunday in a very long time where there's just no football and no eBay sales for me, and no, like, it was really, I think, to me, it was like the perfect timing for the start of season 2, because I can just kind of clear my mind and just get to the, I don't know what, the post-it notes or the dry erase board, and just get the ideas down and just really set up a plan or a goal for season 2. But again, the end goal is to just continue having fun and talking to some really interesting people in the hobby. So I've already recorded 2 guests, and I won't say who right now, but they are going to run these next 2 episodes, I think. I mean, I hope. I have no clue. But, I hope you enjoy the glimpse behind the curtain, a glimpse behind just the madness, the passion that is the hobby. Again, for the day one listeners, thank you so much. There were, I think, 11 of you or 13 of you who listened to the first episode of season 1. And I have no clue how many seasons it's going to go. Again, this was meant to be a limited series. It was meant to be just 12 episodes. And now we're at episode 65, which, for some podcasters is like nothing. But to me, it's just like, man, I've had a lot of fun along the way. So I'm not going to do a recap. I thought about doing one of those, right? Like sound bites or, what have guests said and what have I learned. I don't want to get too like introspective. I already feel like I am way too introspective. So, we're going to keep it moving. I have some awesome guests lined up, some people who have been on other podcasts, and you know about them, and you may gain a different perspective or not, knowledge about them. And some people, uh, I almost went the entire time without flubbing way too bad. And then you'll hear from some people you have never heard on a podcast, or at least I never have. And I've actually asked some of them, have you been on a podcast? And they're like, I was on some YouTube thing a while ago, or, I don't know, like some podcast that's now not, actually still active anymore. But I really look forward to bringing these voices up to the forefront, and I hope you enjoy them. So I think that's about it. I didn't pause this time. I think I gotta get a better chair. I think like the way I lean when I talk to a guest and when I do a monologue, it's just different. And for the creators, the people who do podcasts, maybe you get what I'm saying and maybe you don't. I mean, some of you may just be the same every single time. Um, Definitely have thought about upgrading this microphone setup, and my headphones. The headphone jack is all jacked up, and sometimes it goes out. Um, but thankfully, it hasn't. So we're gonna keep the fun rolling. I'm gonna stop talking. I think that'll help start season 2. Is just end this episode and get ready to not edit, like lightly look over and get the show description notes ready for the next 2 guests, so that those episodes are ready to go. And then we're just going to get people along the way, and let's just have a lot of fun. So thank you so much. No outro, just enjoy the hobby. Reach out to me if you have any questions or comments or concerns on Instagram, not on Threads, Denny_cards, and hope you all have a wonderful week, depending on when you listen to this. Well, I should just stop now.